Your struggle is your power. Never give up. What if the pain you're trying so hard to escape is actually the very thing that will make you unstoppable? What if every rejection, every failure, and every sleepless night is preparing you for a future that most people could only dream of? This is the story of Ethan Walker, a young man from Houston, Texas, who had nothing except one promise to himself. No matter how hard life gets, I will never give up. Ethan Walker grew up in a small apartment with his mother, Emily Walker, who worked long hours as a waitress. His father had passed away when Ethan was only 8 years old, leaving behind nothing but old photographs and the memory of a man who always believed that hard work could change any life. As Ethan grew older, life became even more difficult. While his classmates wore expensive clothes and talked about family vacations, Ethan wore the same pair of worn-out sneakers every day. Many students laughed at him, calling him the poor kid. Every insult hurt, but instead of fighting back, Ethan stayed silent. Deep inside, he made a decision that no one knew about. He promised himself that one day people would remember his success, not his struggles. After graduating from high school, Ethan took a job unloading delivery trucks at a warehouse. The work was exhausting. Every evening his back ached, his hands were covered with cuts, and his body begged him to quit. Yet every night after work, instead of wasting time watching television or scrolling through social media, Ethan spent 2 hours learning about business, leadership, and personal development. He watched free online courses, read books borrowed from the local library, and filled notebook after notebook with ideas. His co-workers laughed whenever they saw him carrying books. One of them said, "Books won't make you rich. Just enjoy your paycheck." Ethan smiled politely but never argued. He had learned that arguing with people steals time from building your future. One Saturday morning, Ethan met an elderly man named Richard Collins at a neighborhood coffee shop. Richard had built and sold several successful companies before retiring. After noticing Ethan reading a business book, Richard asked, "Why are you studying so hard?" Ethan answered honestly, "Because I don't want to stay where I am forever." Richard smiled and said something Ethan would never forget. Life rewards those who keep moving, while everyone else is making excuses. From that day on, Richard became Ethan's mentor. Every weekend they met for coffee, and Richard shared lessons that no classroom could teach. He explained that failure is tuition for success, discipline is more valuable than talent, and the strongest people are often the ones who have suffered the most. Inspired by those conversations, Ethan decided to start a small online marketing business from his tiny apartment. His first website looked terrible. His first advertisement failed. His first client disappeared without paying him. Within 6 months, he had lost almost all of his savings. Friends mocked him. Relatives told him to stop dreaming and find a real career. Even his own doubts whispered that maybe everyone else was right. One rainy night, Ethan sat alone staring at his laptop, ready to quit. Then he opened an old notebook and found the sentence he had written years earlier. "No matter how hard life gets, I will never give up." Reading those words reminded him why he had started. Instead of giving up, he stayed awake until sunrise, fixing mistakes, improving his skills, and preparing to try again. Months later, everything slowly began to change. A small local business gave Ethan a chance to manage its online advertising. He worked harder than anyone expected, answering emails late at night, studying new strategies before sunrise, and treating the client's business as if it were his own. The campaign became a success, and the client recommended Ethan to others. One customer became 5. 5 became 20. Before long, Ethan hired his first employee, then another. Within a few years, the young man who had once unloaded trucks for minimum wage owned a growing marketing agency with clients across the United States. One afternoon, Ethan walked into his office and saw a familiar face waiting for an interview. It was one of the classmates who had laughed at his worn-out shoes years earlier. The man looked nervous as he quietly said, "I heard you're hiring. I was hoping for a chance." Ethan remembered every joke, every insult, and every moment people made him feel small. But instead of seeking revenge, he smiled and shook the man's hand. "Everyone deserves an opportunity to change," he said. In that moment, Ethan realized that true success isn't measured by how high you climb, but by how kindly you treat others after you've reached the top. A few weeks later, Ethan was invited to speak at a leadership conference in Dallas. A young student stood up and asked, "What is the greatest power a person can have?" The audience expected Ethan to talk about money, intelligence, or influence. Instead, he smiled and replied, "Your greatest power is your struggle. Struggle teaches you patience when life is unfair. It teaches you discipline when motivation disappears. It teaches you courage when fear tells you to quit. Without struggle, success has no foundation." The room became silent as everyone reflected on those words. As Ethan walked off the stage, he remembered the warehouse, the sleepless nights, the laughter of people who doubted him, and the promise he had made as a young boy. Looking back, he realized something incredible. Every painful moment had prepared him for the life he was living now. If life had been easy, he would never have become strong enough to handle success. So if you're going through difficult days, don't believe that your story is over. Every challenge is building a stronger version of you. Every setback is teaching you something success cannot. Every failure is another step toward the person you're becoming. The road may be long and the climb may be difficult, but remember this: diamonds are created under pressure, and the strongest people are shaped by the hardest battles. If this story inspired you, share it with someone who needs hope today. And if you enjoy motivational stories that strengthen your mindset and remind you to keep moving forward, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because your next breakthrough could begin with the very next story you watch. Remember, your struggle is not your weakness. Your struggle is your power. And no matter how many times life knocks you down, never give up.